We
So
published a really good.
people will take hookworms and they'll just keep titrating up the number until their symptoms go away.
Yeah.
Wow. And do they just live in you forever?
Oh, no, 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 not a hookworm. No, that's no, not. I mean, there's one worm that'll live in you forever, but nobody uses that because it produces little wiggly egg sacs that come out your anus at times you can't predict. So that's not really good. But other than that, it doesn't have any side effects.
Wow.
Anyway, people don't use that one, but you probably need to replenish the hookworm might live in you for a year, but after apparently, and this is based on thousands of people literally doing this over time, trial and error. Apparently, after a few months, maybe 6 months, they just don't work very well for immune modulation for some reason. So you just need some fresh ones.
Wow. So again, the idea is that when you see an effect here, it depends on having the worm inside you. It's not a permanent thing.
It is not so. It is not a permanent thing, and for studies, so there's different ways to look at this. Studies of people who immigrate to high-income parts of the world, so they immigrate from a Helminth-rich region to a Helminth-depleted region. They'll start seeing certain effects within about 5 years, if they start becoming sensitive to allergies. So if you grew up and your system is adjusted to it, you can have protection for a while, but it's not going to be permanent.
Well, I see. So it's not entirely based on like what happened in your childhood. Someone can move to another part of the world in adulthood, and within a few years, I mean, the idea would be that you might have some worms inside of you. After a few years, they're no longer inside of you, and then you start developing allergies or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Then you get susceptible to all the Western diseases.
Wow.
That's pretty much what it boils down to. Yeah.
And so hookworms, did you say there was another one that people commonly took?
Oh yeah, yeah. So the hookworm, the other two are a whipworm, the porcine whipworms called TSO, and then there's the rat tapeworm, which it's called the HDC, stands for and TSO and HDC are genus, species, and then the life stage of the organism that they're using. So they're using other worms, and generally the most benign worm is the most expensive and hardest to get, whereas the hookworm is the easiest to get. So it's basically a trade-off between how much time and money and effort you have versus what you want to get. So you can get a hookworm really cheap, but if you want an HDC, you really almost need to know somebody who's spending a lot of time, effort, and energy to make it.
Wow. And so remind us, so what are all of the most common conditions that people out there are saying are treated by these worms?
Yeah, so it doesn't work. They don't work, it seems, very well at all for persistent or progressive autoimmune conditions. But they work for relapsing, remitting autoimmune conditions.
Things that come and go.
Yeah, things that come and go. Lupus would be a classic example. MS would be a classic example. Chronic fatigue would be a classic example of that. Although that's leaning more toward the neuropsychiatric, right? And then of course depression, anxiety disorders, postpartum depression, and then you've got the allergic stuff. So the thing that we see with the allergic stuff is the helminths don't, once your immune system has decided, for example, that peanuts are bad, that's probably never going to change. The helminths don't go back and rewrite your immune system, but they'll tune it down so that your reactivity to the peanuts in this case will be a lot less, and you don't have to worry about, for example, an anaphylaxis. At least that's the information that we were able to glean from looking at over 1,000 reports that we viewed systematic. We can rule out survivor bias. We can rule out some other kinds of bias that would plague, say, just collecting a bunch of anecdotes. But
So would there actually be some risk in taking anti-parasitic medications unless you really need